so broke. I can't buy anything to anybody. All right. Hear me mumbling to myself. I'm getting bills. Too many bills, boys. All right. How's everybody doing? Lately, all I want to do Good morning and welcome to the Crypto Mining Show, your one-stop shop for all cryptocurrency news from the perspective of a cryptocurrency miner. And today's not looking so hot. Don't worry, we're going to try to cover it to the best of our ability. It is April 11th. We're getting close to, of course, that tax deadline. Probably has something to do with it. Bitcoin Miami has ended and everybody's trying to liquidate their cryptocurrency to get home. And after playing Bitcoin economy all weekend, and yeah, it's definitely affecting the markets. We're also going to be talking about Ada Lovelace and the new memory capacity and, of course, speeds, all that sort of thing. We also have cryptocurrency miners in Texas needing to get approval from ERCOT. I don't have a ton of news on this. I actually have to go study it some more too because I'm curious at what level you need to get approval. And then we have, of course, the bullish market ending. And we have an interesting article from New York Times. It's kind of an opinion piece, I think. And it's about the crypto industry basically writing its own rules and its own agenda, according to New York Times. Then we're going to get into mining profitability for the day. And that'll wrap it up. Before we get into it, here's a word from our sponsor. Today's sponsor is myself. To support the channel, click the join button below the video and you will get access to our privately hosted Rocket Chat. Selecting the $1.99 option will get you access, and after that you need to head over to the membership tab, scroll down, and expand out your membership perks. Find the section for connecting on social media, and in that section there will be a secret registration URL to join Rocket Chat, where you can sign up to enjoy talking with other cryptocurrency enthusiasts and miners without spammers, scammers, or bots. Boom! Best sponsor in town. Be sure to hit that membership button if you want to support the channel. Let's get into the first topic. NVIDIA's next gen Ada Lovelace GPU-powered flagship is rumored to feature the AD102 GPU, 21 gigabit per second memory, and 24 gigabyte capacity, and up to 600 watt TGP. NVIDIA's Ada Lovelace GPUs will be coming to gamers later this year in the next gen GeForce RTX graphics cards. These cards are expected to rock some extreme specs and some extreme GPU requirements to operate as detailed by this leaker in his latest round of leaks. There might be a new rumor surrounding the naming convention using the next-gen GeForce graphics cards, with some pointing towards a name change to the GeForce RTX 50 series instead of the previously expected RTX 40 series. In the end, whatever NVIDIA decides to call the next GeForce lineup isn't as important as its underlying specifications. We know from the leaked NVIDIA Ada Lovelace GPU configurations, which show that the flagship GA102 gaming chip will rock a total of 144 SMs, a 71% increase over the existing GA102 GPU, and house a massive 18,432 CUDA core count. The chip used by the flagship GeForce graphics card will rock the AD102 300 GPU, and we can't say for sure if this GPU will be the full fat SKU, since the RTX 3090 Ti with the GA102 350 rocks the full configuration, while the GA102 300 SKU featured on the NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3090 is a cut down SKU. According to Copite, which is the leaker, the flagship GeForce graphics card will be based on the PG137-139 SKU 30 PCB. These are both reference and founders edition designs. The reference design is provided to AIBs as a reference for their custom models, while the FE is exclusive to the reference founders edition model. The graphics card is said to retain the 24 gigabytes of memory capacity while offering a memory speed of 21 gigabits per second across a 384-bit bus. That's the same memory design as the flagship Ampere GeForce, the RTX 3090 Ti, and should rock the same amount of bandwidth at 1004 gigabytes per second. As for the power input, the card would feature a single PCIe Gen 5 connector with a TGP rating of up to 600 watts. You will require four 8-pin to one 16-pin adapters. Well, basically, you're going to need to convert 4 8-pins to a single 16-pin. If you're running an older PSU or a single Gen 5 to Gen 5 connector, if you have a compliant power supply, these things are going to be power hungry as ever, right? The NVIDIA Ada Lovelace GPU family is expected to bring a generational jump similar to Maxwell, from Maxwell to Pascal. It is expected to launch in the second half of 2022, but expect supply and pricing to be similar to current cards, despite NVIDIA spending billions of dollars to acquire those good TSMC 5 nanometer wafers. All right, let me close this. So are these things going to be an improvement for mining? Well, it doesn't look like it, right? What it looks like is from the mining perspective, especially memory intensive applications like mining Ethereum specifically, we're not going to see an improvement. We are seeing an increase in power though, even over the 3090 Ti from the best I can tell here. So what are we looking at for hash rate? Well, at that top end GPU here, it really is looking to be around that 130 mega hash a second, just like the 3090 Ti, except instead of getting around 300 to 400 watts, we could potentially be getting much more power usage or consumption out of these GPUs, making it not a wise choice to purchase for mining. As far as all the rumors and everything that's coming out between all the GPUs, including Intel and AMD and so on, I think if we wanted to place them in most anticipated for mining in particular, and of course I could be wrong and this isn't financial advice, I'd put Intel at the number 1 slot with AMD at the number 2 slot, even just with their refresh, and NVIDIA on the newest line in the 3rd spot. I don't think that these GPUs are going to be that great for mining, and I hope I'm proven wrong, but I'm definitely not even looking forward to trying to figure out how you would even build a mining rig with these, because PCIe Gen 5 is ridiculously, complicated to put together, because most of these power supplies are only coming with the single 16 pin. They are not coming with multiples of them. The power requirement on boot is going to be pretty insane too. You're going to have to be very careful. Even if you get the cards tuned down, you could have a lot of problems with power supplies going out if the overclocks aren't set properly. You don't have the absolute clocks in place. These are just going to be pretty intense to configure from my perspective. I'd like to hear what you guys think in the comment section and of course in the live chat. Next, this affects me and I don't know all the details. This comes from Rocket Chat, so thanks for sharing this with me, and I do not know exactly what's going to happen at this time, but the title is Cryptocurrency Miners Need Approval from ERCOT to Plug into the Texas Grid. And this is coming from Dallas, Texas. And let's get into it. So Texas cryptocurrency miners must now get approval from ERCOT to connect to the state's power grid. State regulators said the new requirement is to ensure new large loads do not overwhelm the grid. Ever since China began cracking down on Bitcoin mining, miners have been rushing to Texas to take advantage of the state's cheap power prices, tax incentives, as well as the ability to connect to the grid quickly. In the next 2 years, cryptocurrency mining operations are expected to quadruple in Texas, according to the Texas Blockchain Council. This would put the Lone Star State on track to become the world's largest producer of Bitcoin in less than 2 years. Quote, this will put a massive amount of stress on the Texas energy grid, end quote, said William Magnuson, the author of Blockchain Democracy and a cryptocurrency legal expert at the Texas A&M Law School. Quote, we know the Texas energy grid has had its struggles in the last couple of years, so I do worry about the effects of imposing massive new energy use on a grid that we know is or has been relatively unstable, end quote. During the 2021 deadly winter storm, millions of Texans went without power for days as the Texas grid failed in the freezing conditions to keep up with the demand. In the past year, steps have been taken to increase the power grid's capacity and to winterize power plants. Still, many energy experts believe the Texas grid remains vulnerable, and a rush of high energy using cryptocurrency mining facilities could further stress the grid. A typical large crypto mining facility houses tens of thousands of high-powered computer servers referred to as miners. These miners operate around the clock, competing with other miners to solve complex math equations. The computer that solves the problem first produces a new Bitcoin and then is rewarded with Bitcoins for themselves. The electricity it takes to produce a single Bitcoin is equivalent to the amount used to power an average Texas home for 62 days. Magnuson said ERCOT's new approval process for large cryptocurrency mining facilities is a good start, but added it's what state regulators do with the information they learn from the studies that will be key. Quote, how are they going to weigh the cost and benefits of adding this new mining companies to the grid? That is where the rubber meets the road, end quote, he said. Lee Bratcher, the president of Texas Blockchain Council, said he views the new proposal step as an opportunity to share with ERCOT how cryptocurrency miners can strengthen the grid. Quote, we actually see this approval process as a positive development, end quote, he said. By using electricity that might otherwise go wasted during low demand times and then powering down during peak demand times, Bratcher said Bitcoin miners will attract additional power generators to the state while offering flexibility to stabilize the grid. In many cases, Bitcoin miners can make money when turning their power off by selling their electricity back to the grid when demand is high. Quote, Bitcoin mining is not going to solve all the grid's power problems, but it's part of the solution to be sure, end quote, Bratcher said. Some cryptocurrency miners have expressed concern about how long the approval process could take. ERCOT officials told CBS 11 iTeam, quote, the time ERCOT takes for its new interim review will vary depending on the site and what concerns may be identified. Each study is based on the unique circumstances it presents, end quote. ERCOT officials and cryptocurrency miners are expected to meet later this month to hash out details of the new approval process. So, I have a lot of people asking me, like, how does this affect you? Excuse my alarm here. How does this affect you? What are you going to do about it? That sort of thing. Clearly, there's not enough details for me to know exactly how it affects my particular farm. I have an idea because the low power consumption that I have, plus the approval process that I'm already going through with the actual electricity company that isn't necessarily ERCOT, that they're going to be handling that as we build out this phase 3 area. So I don't necessarily think that it will affect me directly. I think this is going to be more aimed towards really, really massive, large-scale operations. Now, hopefully I get to a massive, large-scale operation, and I'll go through the whole approval process, and we'll figure it out. That's much easier said than done, right? So I'm not expecting to be at that point anytime soon. That being said, though, we are going to be keeping an eye on this, and when the new details come out next month, we'll definitely get it covered. We've had a lot of details to cover, right? Lots of new stuff happening. We're just going to have to see what happens. All right. Let's go ahead and get into the the bearish trend of Bitcoin through first movers on CoinDesk, and then we'll kind of get you guys caught up there. As you guys might know, we've been seeing a break under 41,000 on Bitcoin. and Ethereum is under 3,100. We could see a crash back below 40K on Bitcoin and back below 3K on Ethereum. Let's see what's happening, right? So here's the first market mover news. Here's what's happening this morning. Market moves. Bitcoin's options market shows renewed bias for downside projection. The cryptocurrency has dived out of an ascending trend line. The Federal Reserve may abandon its fight against inflation if and when the corporate credit card market or credit market shows signs of stress. And then let's get down here. So nervousness seems to have seeped into Bitcoin market with the cryptocurrency's break of a bullish trend line amid renewed macro fears. Put call skews, which measure the difference between implied volatility premiums of calls and put options, are again trending higher, indicating a renewed bias for puts, which are options that offer downside protection. Notably, the 6-month skew has increased from -1% to 5% in 1 week. The 1 and 3 month metrics have seen similar moves according to data provided by Skew. Quote, in the current market, the most practical way to hedge with puts is still primarily done in Bitcoin and ETH compared to any other altcoins, end quote, CJ Fong, head of Asia sales at crypto liquidity providers GSR said. Quote, we need Bitcoin skew trending relatively higher than ETH skew, with bears taking increasingly polar positions. Well, with regards to altcoins, bearishness, we are seeing these expressed in terms of near strike call selling rather than buying of puts, end quote, Fong added. Noel Aitchison, something like that, head of marketing insights at Genesis Global said, quote, we are seeing growing interest in covered strategies. Volatilities have been continuing their trend down, making some expiries notably cheap, end quote. Implied volatility looks cheap. The 1 week implied volatility, which gauges expected price turbulence over the next 7 days, fell under 50% annualized over the weekend, which was its lowest level since November of 2020. The 1, 3, and 6 month gauges also continued to decline. All gauges are now cheaper compared with their lifetime average. Further, the 3 month implied volatility is cheaper than the 3 month realized volatility. In other words, volatility expectations are underpriced, which according to options theory is the best time to take long strangles, which involve buying both call and put options. Quote, at this stage, though, buying some Bitcoin puts can be profitable to some extent. Implied volatility remains near all-time lows and hasn't seen a significant uptick in response to recent price declines, end quote, Griffin Arden, volatility trader at crypto asset management firm Blowfin, said. Quote, this means that the time, aka theta, time value, we need to pay will not be too much. Still, once there is any turbulence, whether from volatility perspective or price direction perspective, the probability of having some profit significantly increases. So here's the bearish part. This is, of course, from CoinDesk. It's opinionated. It's not financial advice coming from this channel. Also, there's nothing new under the sun here, boys. To me, it still looks like we're basically kind of going sideways. It's not to FUD out, right? But we want to cover it so we have an idea of what people are thinking. Bitcoin dipped to 41,000 soon before press time, having invalidated the bullish trend line from February lows over the weekend. The 14-day relative strength index has entered the bearish territory under 50, supporting a continued price decline. The immediate support is about 40,000. Quote, on the support side, buying actively has been concentrated around the $40,000 level, where 820,000 Bitcoin was previously acquired, making this the price to watch out for, end quote, Lucas Atumaro, head of research at blockchain analytics firm Into the Block, said in a newsletter published Friday. So you can kind of see that we are still over that $40,000 mark. And then that's what you're looking at to see, I guess, if we're going to continue a decline or continue to move sideways, that sort of thing. I wouldn't freak out too much. Obviously, like, this is pretty kind of par for the course as it goes in cryptocurrency. And everything looks way better than it would normally look in a Bitcoin super cycle, meaning like we are over double where I would expect us to currently be based on the super cycle chart, right? So all in all, things are actually much better than I would have initially anticipated just based on that. So there are positives going on here. We have a really odd article that I wanted to cover from the New York Times. It says crypto industry helps write and pass its own agenda in state capitals. Now, we've been talking about basically the political effect on cryptocurrency in general on this channel. It's one of the only mining channels that really addresses it. So we're going to continue to address them so that you guys are up to date and kind of have an idea of what's going on. Now, consider the source here. Consider that it does seem to have a pretty hefty opinionated leaning on it. But we're going to get into it, right? So in the absence of federal regulations, crypto lobbyists and executives are going state by state to get favorable rules enacted. Many lawmakers have been willing partners. The debate took less than 4 minutes. In the Florida House last month, legislators swiftly gave final approval to a bill that makes it easier to buy and sell cryptocurrency, eliminating a threat from a law intended to curb money laundering. One of the new pauses in the action came when 2 House members stood up to thank crypto industry stakeholders for teaming up with state officials to write a draft of the bill. Quote, whether you're Binance or Ethereum, Dogecoin or Bitcoin, this is a great bill, end quote, said Representative John Snyder, a Palm City Republican, referring to crypto exchanges and coins. Shortly afterwards, the House voted unanimously to pass the measure. The Senate followed, sending the bill to Governor Ron DeSantis for his signature after 75 seconds of deliberations. Florida's warm embrace of the cryptocurrency agenda is just the tip of an aggressive industry-led push to position states as crypto-friendly beachheads. Across the nation, crypto executives and lobbyists are helping to draft bills to benefit the fast-growing industry, then pushing lawmakers to adopt these made-to-order laws before moving rapidly to profit from the legislative victories. The effort is part of an emerging national strategy, by the crypto industry in the absence so far of comprehensive federal regulatory demands to work state by state to engineer more friendly legal system. Lobbyists are aiming to clear the way for continued explosive growth of cryptocurrency companies, which are trying to revolutionize banking, e-commerce, and even art and music. Many states are racing to satisfy the wish list from crypto companies and their lobbyists, betting that the industry can generate new jobs. But some consumer advocates worry that this aim to please effort could leave investors and businesses more vulnerable to the scams and risky practices that have plagued crypto's early growth. In Florida, the new money transmission legislation emerged from a months-long collaboration between Representative Vance Alupis Jr., a Republican of South Miami, and Samuel Arms, who is starting a cryptocurrency investment firm, Tortuga Venture Fund. Quote, Vance has been an incredible asset to the blockchain and crypto community, end quote, Mr. Arms said. Similar teamwork has been on display in Wyoming, North Carolina, Illinois, Mississippi, Kentucky, and other states, according to a New York Times review of state legislative proposals and interviews with legislators and their industry allies. At least 153 pieces of cryptocurrency-related legislation were pending this year in 40 states and Puerto Rico, according to an analysis by the National Conference of State Legislators. While it was unclear how many were influenced by the crypto industry, some bills have used industry-proposed language almost word for word. One bill pending in Illinois lifted entire sentences from a draft provided by a lobbyist. I mean, look, So when we're talking about like lobbying and all this sort of thing, we do have to take into account that that's kind of how literally everything works within the government at this time. So it's a kind of I understand that the opinion, it's trying to get you to lean against it by like, oh, those terrible lobbyists or whatever. But the fact of the matter is that this happens in literally every single industry, that the lobbyists come in and they help regulate, right? Because you need somebody that's experienced within the industry. Now, can that be misused? Yes. Has it been misused in the past? For sure, right? We could just look at tobacco companies, for example. It doesn't necessarily mean that that this would be a negative, though. In New York, at least a dozen industry players have hired lobbyists over the last year, including Blockchain.com, a crypto exchange, and Paxos, which is trying to set up a national crypto bank, collectively spending more than $140,000 a month, state records show. The state proposals include bills to exempt cryptocurrency from securities law intended to protect investors from fraud. Other legislation, such as in Florida, would exclude certain cryptocurrency transactions from money transmission laws enacted to curb money laundering. Some would take even more radical steps, as in Arizona, where one legislator wants to declare Bitcoin legal tender so it can be accepted to pay off debts. How would I don't get it, but how would basically utilizing Bitcoin to pay off debts be a negative? I don't really get it. And I don't see how that is pushing further past or in relation to money laundering at all. But, quote, legislators want to be on the cutting edge, on the side of something new, end quote, said Kristen Smith, executive director of the Blockchain Association, a Washington group that represents the industry. Quote, we want to cultivate more champions, end quote. The moves have alarmed current and former financial regulators like Lee Rainers, and a one-time supervisor at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, who is now at Duke University Law School. He raised objections last year before North Carolina passed a bill exempting certain experimental cryptocurrency startups from the state's consumer protection laws. Quote, states are being convinced you have to do this if you want to be competitive, so they're rolling out the red carpet for crypto firms, end quote, he said. Quote, there's no one pushing back saying there are big risks here to your citizens of money laundering, consumer fraud, and tax evasion. Remember, we've talked about this before. What are the attacks going to be, right? That fear that they're going to put into the public so that they can gain control over it. Because at the end of the day, that's what this is about, right? It's about control over it or not control over it. And you're going to have these fear-mongering tactics, things like money laundering, protecting the consumer, and so on. Does that mean that there shouldn't be regulations that are put into place? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that when we start to see those arguments, though, you just need to keep an eye out, because it can mean that they're trying to go a lot further with it, right? State legislators, many of whom have limited background in financial regulation, said they had little choice but to rely on industry experts given the complexity of the crypto market. Well, yes, and that is, once again, we go back to lobbyists are nothing new under the sun. Typically, they provide some sort of expert opinion to assist within making rules and regulations. That's kind of part of the whole entire structure of our government. Could it be done better? Yes, but that is kind of how this works. About 2 years ago, Jason Sain, a state representative in North Carolina, spoke with Dan Spooler, who wanted to pitch him on crypto projects and later joined the Blockchain Association. Quote, what would it look like, end quote, Mr. Sain said he recalled asking. You tell me. Their collaboration resulted in a bill that Mr. Sain introduced last year, creating a regulatory sandbox for financial technology projects, essentially a special license allowing the industry to test new products without following certain regulatory requirements. The bill passed in October. solving the Espinoza problem. In Florida, it began with the 2019 book Bitcoin Billionaires. State legislators started working with the crypto industry after Mr. Alupis read the book, which details the efforts of the Winklevoss brothers, who helped create Facebook to generate new wealth in the crypto industry. Mr. Alupis said he had then spoken with the Gemini Trust Company, the cryptocurrency exchange that the Winklevosses founded, and Anchorage Digital, the first federally chartered cryptocurrency bank, for input on possible legislation he could introduce. At the time, crypto executives were frustrated with a 2019 Florida court ruling that upheld the conviction of Mitchell Espinoza, who had sold Bitcoin to a Miami Beach police officer working undercover as the operator of a Russian stolen credit card enterprise. Mr. Espinoza was charged with laundering money and failing to hold a Florida money transmission license. To me, that still sounds like, to this day, entrapment. But, it is what it is. The ruling meant that any two-party transaction involving cryptocurrency in Florida, even perhaps withdrawing money from a crypto ATM or buying crypto on an exchange, required sellers to have a state money transmission license. For crypto companies, that necessitated meeting financial stability requirements and completing complicated paperwork. They called it the Espinoza problem. In July, the state ordered a dozen ATM providers that sell crypto in exchange for cash, including CashCloud, CoinNow, and DigiCash, to register as money transmitters despite appeals from the companies. Last year, Mr. Alupis introduced the bill to exempt two-party crypto transactions after lobbying appeals by Mr. Arms and the trade group he leads, the Florida Blockchain Business Association. Its members include Binance, the large crypto exchange. The bill failed to win Senate approval, and it was reintroduced for this year's session. Russell Weigel, the Florida Commissioner of the Office of Financial Regulation, said he endorsed the legislation that Mr. Arms had championed. Quote, "If I go and buy groceries at your food store, that's a two-party transaction," end quote, Mr. Weigel said. Quote, "Do I need a license for that? It seems absurd," end quote. Lobbyists for blockchain.com, a cryptocurrency exchange that moved last year from New York to Miami, and Bit5, which manufactures crypto mining equipment in the Florida area, joined the effort, contacting dozens of state lawmakers. Quote, "They are very pro-crypto," end quote, Robert Calazzo, the Bit5 chief executive, said of Florida lawmakers. In the future, the company plans to raise money for crypto-friendly legislators in Florida, said Michael Kesty, Bit5's lobbyist. The Legislative Affairs Director of the Florida Blockchain Association, Jason Holloway, is already running for the state house with donations, some in cryptocurrency, from Mr. Arms and others. Quote, "I don't want it to seem like we are paying for the influence," end quote, Mr. Kesty said, "but we do want to support them." What's happened in Florida is playing out in other states as the crypto industry mobilizes to move its agenda or defend against efforts to rein in it. In New York, for example, concern about the environmental impact of so-called crypto mining, in which large amounts of electricity are used to run computers that allow investors to get newly issued crypto tokens, has led to pending legislation to ban these centers. Another bill proposes cracking down on common forms of crypto fraud. The result has been a flood of lobbying in New York to combat these measures. The opposite is happening in Georgia and Illinois, where legislators have proposed tax incentives for mining companies. The Illinois bill emerged after Senga Systems, a crypto mining company, converted an old steel mill in the state into a mining center and sought a special tax break to help finance the project. Last year, a Senga, lobbyist took an official from the State Chamber of Commerce to visit the project in Hennepin, Illinois. Keith Statz, the chamber official, suggested modifying a state law to extend tax incentives to mining companies that set up shop in Illinois. He wrote a draft of the bill, which the chamber shared with Senga. Quote, "I looked at it I iterated with them, end quote, said Spencer Marr, Senga's president. They made sure I was good with it. In January, Sue Rezin, a Republican state senator, introduced the bill. At the urging of the chamber, she said in an interview, she said she was not a crypto expert and hadn't heard too much about mining's environmental impact. The bill's final version, which is waiting action, is nearly identical to the draft written by Mr. Stats, including technical language about data centers and mining. You would hope that it would include technical language about data centers and mining if you're writing a bill about data centers and mining. I'm just saying. Not all legislative proposals have come to fruition. In Mississippi, Josh Harkins, a Republican state senator, proposed several crypto bills this year, including one exempting digital tokens from securities laws. He said he had gotten the idea from a lobbyist, Daniel Harrison, who was hoping to start a local blockchain trade association. The bills died in committee in February. Mr. Harkins said he planned to revive them this summer. I think that surrounding the digital tokens area is specifically a space that needs regulation, primarily because of the ease of use of spinning up tokens on ERC20 or BEP or whatever it is, and creating rug pulls very easily. It's not difficult at all. Tons of people do it. In fact, I was watching a prank video just last night about a guy that basically created a fake token to sell to an influencer and trick them into buying or taking a sponsorship from a fake token. I think that these clearly got shot down because there are still some regulatory concerns surrounding them. And it makes sense to me, right? I think that all of this is being actually kind of done in the proper manner and starting to get figured out, right? In some states where crypto legislation has passed, the architects of the proposals have moved swiftly to profit on the laws. Last year, Kentucky passed a pair of bills creating tax incentives for crypto mining companies. One was sponsored by Brandon Smith, a Republican who leads the state Senate's Natural Resources and Energy Committee. A few months after the bill passed, Mr. Smith teamed up with Bitmain, a supplier of hardware for crypto mining, to propose a Kentucky-based repair center for mining equipment, a project he has since abandoned. Mr. Smith, in an interview, said he did not consider his work in the industry a conflict, given that he had not applied for tax credits his law created, or for the same tax credits. Nowhere has the potential for crypto advocates to profit on new legislation becomes more apparent than in Wyoming. Since 2018, Wyoming has established more than 20 laws that make it easier for crypto industry to operate. A key player was Caitlin Long, a Wall Street veteran and a crypto booster who helped engineer a 2019 law that paved the way for banks handling digital assets to receive Wyoming charters. Not long after the crypto banking legislation passed, Ms. Long opened Avanti Bank and thanked Wyoming's legislature for making the business possible. The bank promptly received a state charter. Last year, the business known as Custodia raised $37 million from venture investors. Quote, somebody has to be in the arena doing the work, end quote, Ms. Long said in an interview. Ms. Long worked on the banking legislation with Trace Mayer, a crypto investor and entrepreneur. Both had invested in Kraken, a crypto exchange that also received a state charter. Critics have accused Ms. Long of using her influence to enrich herself. Quote, they came in and started writing legislation that really gamed it to their advantage, end quote, said Robert Jennings, who served with Ms. Long on a coalition of crypto supporters in Wyoming. Quote, it quit being about how do we help Wyoming people and quickly became how do we game this system for the big crypto players, end quote. Ms. Long said she hadn't decided to start a crypto bank until months after Wyoming's legislation passed, when it was unclear whether others would take advantage of the law. Quote, it's not easy to find the right people, end quote, she said. The crypto kids in hoodies, so to speak, were not likely to pass muster. Oh, make an attack What are you talking? Am I a crypto kid in a hoodie? Is that what I am, Miss Long, to you? Is that what I am to you? Come on. No, we just don't have old money. That's the thing. We just don't have old boomer money. You guys are stripping it from us. Stripping it from us. That's what you're doing. What are you going to live until you guys are like 100 years old? Staying in the work industry until your late 80s? Not letting millennials get jobs and move up. All right, I'm done. I'm done complaining. Let's talk about mining profitability. I'm done complaining like a millennial. Let's talk about mining profitability for the day. All right, so it's all over the place. This morning it said it was going to be 225 USD for the day. Now it's at 240 USD for the day, 0.079. We can get a better idea for the last 24 hours, which is 218 US dollars at 0.071 ETH a day. Not doing great. Definitely down from last week. Pretty hefty. Part of that's due to the crash in price of Ethereum, and part of that's due to the amount of blocks being found, and so on. This week's probably going to be a pretty slow week, I would assume, primarily due to the fact that everybody's coming off that Bitcoin Miami high, and they're going home. They're liquidating their crypto to pay for flights. Probably going to be a little slow on their trading. Not a lot's going to be going on with the NFT market. I could be wrong, but usually right after Bitcoin Miami, stuff kind of just goes down in price. I did do a poll on that because I was curious what you guys thought on it. And let's go ahead and pull that poll up as well. I said, will the crypto market be up or down at the end of the Bitcoin Miami conference? And you guys are incorrect. You said up. 54% said up. 46% of you were correct, saying down. And it's down. So there you go. There you go. That's the answer to that. If you were wondering if you were correct or incorrect on the poll, don't worry. None of us can predict it. But anybody that's been through a Bitcoin Miami conference knows it always goes down right afterwards. Let's go ahead and talk about cryptocurrency mining, on what to mine. What we're seeing on the RTX 3090, let's go ahead and correct the Zell hash rate, is that Ethereum is at $4.29 a day after power for mining profitability. Zell hash is at $3.12 a day after power if you're mining through NiceHash. If you're going to mine Flux directly, though, it's only $2.77 a day after power. There's some real problems going on with Flux and the amount of hash rate coming in from NiceHash right now, in my humble opinion. This is kind of a weird thing because we haven't seen another currency that is kind of a hybrid of staking or noding and mining that has hit this level of success. And I think one of the things that we're seeing from that is this oddity of the NiceHash basically service paying out more for this particular algorithm, because there are people that are trying to get into the noding and so on through mining, but through renting miners on NiceHash as opposed to mining themselves. It kind of seems to also be the fact that the miners themselves are, well, mining to create more nodes, which is why kind of nothing's happening on the market as far as the pricing goes. It's a very odd situation. It'll be interesting to see how it kind of pans out over time once the nodes are kind of settled out and people kind of stop creating as many nodes. It is interesting, though. Ethereum Classic is under $3 a day at $2.78 a day. Conflux, which is the Octopus algorithm, is at $2.85 a day after power. Ravencoin is at $2.31 a day after power. And Ergo is at $2.23 a day after power. Taking a look at mining pool stats, we can go ahead and see if there's been any big changes. We actually have an increase of hash rate on Bitcoin. It's up to 286 and 23.8 exahash a second. We talked about the problem with Bitcoin mining lately, and that is that hash rate does not any longer follow the price, right? Previously, Bitcoin hash rate would follow the price. The higher the price of Bitcoin goes, the higher the hash rate goes. The lower the price goes, the lower the hash rate goes. This is no longer the case with Bitcoin, making it a very difficult industry to participate in at a smaller level. You're talking about machines to mine Bitcoin running you around $11,000 that only make you about $15 a day. Your time to ROI is significant, and that's part of what's happening due to these network effects that have been going on. Let's take a look at Ethereum. We'd expect 1 petahash, and boom, it's right there. We have 1 petahash, so no significant changes on Ethereum. Let's take a look at Ethereum Classic and make sure it's still been maintaining. There's a little bit of a dip, but still pretty much maintaining that 28 terahash a second. After its difficulty increase on March 25th, which has been remaining steady, along with the hash rate remaining pretty steady. Let's take a look at Ergo. Since its changes, once again, we see the exact same problem. We see the bump in the hash rate with a delayed increase in the difficulty. I told you guys we'd see this difficulty bump again, same thing, and then we just start to see the hash rate drop off. Ergo needs more than a re-emissions contract. To me, Ergo needs to do something about the difficulty calculations for the miners. Something's not right there. It's making the network unstable, in my opinion. Take a look at Ravencoin. 3.45 terahash a second. No real changes. A couple spikes here on the solo pools. That's about it. And Flux, where we expect to see spikes all over the place. Still at 2 mega solutions a day. You can see a miner pool here. April 10th, there's 2 spikes in solo. April 11th, 1 spike in solo so far. Z Pool's got some spikes. Everything's very spiky on Flux. And that's just the nice hash effect, unfortunately. The nice hack effect. Mining pool profitability. Last 90 days, Flex Pool in first, Mining Pool Hub in second, Ether Mine in third. Last 60 days, Mining Pool Hub in first, Flex Pool in second, ZET in third. Last 30 days, Flex Pool in first, Mining Pool Hub in second, Nano Pool in third. Last 21 days, Flex Pool in first, Ether Mine in second, Mining Pool Hub in third. Last 14 days, Flex Pool in first, Mining Pool Hub in second, Ether Mine in third. For the last 7 days, Flex Pool in first, Mining Pool Hub in second, Crazy Pool in third. For the last 3 days, we have Crazy Pool in first, Mining Pool Hub in second, Flex Pool in third. And then for the last day, we have Crazy Pool in first, Mining Pool Hub in second, Flex Pool in third. For whatever reason, 2 miners is not on the list at all. I'm not sure where it went, but I guess maybe the API pull for the website is not pulling from them right now. For ASIC mining hardware, we got that Jasminer X4 server just popping away. $112 a day, getting lots of questions surrounding it. Look, I don't have one. I don't have much information on it. There's theories going all over the place. It's not really a miner. It's just a proxy server and somebody else is mining for you. There's the NTP protocol problem where you can't change the NTP and it's going to China, and there's not really a clear determination of like necessarily all the packets that are going there. You can't turn it off. Of course, NTP is the name, time protocol. There you go. So all that does is sync your time in theory, so I wouldn't really worry about it. But there's lots of weirdness going on with the Jazz miners. suffice to say, I don't really have the answers. Go watch a review channel, see what they tell you guys, and go from there. Seems like there's a ton of fun conspiracies surrounding it though right now. We have the gold shell KD6 dropping heavily by about $40 a day to $97.75. KD5 has dropped from $90 to $65 a day over the weekend. The L7 is at $42.15 a day. And then if we go down and take a look at the S19 Pro, it's at $15 a day. Once again, like I was talking about, the problem with the Bitcoin mining right now is significant increase in hash rate, while the price is either moving sideways or going down, making it difficult to get into that industry. Let's get into questions and answers. As always, super chats are never required, always appreciated, and the easiest to read. In addition to that, if you tag at Son of a Tech, it'll turn the message orange, making it easy for me to read. And that's pretty much it. It's All Good Mining Company says, at Son of a Tech, politicians profiting from bills they passed. This is certainly nothing new and not limited to crypto. Correct. That is basically what's going on. Does that mean we should accept it as a public? Maybe not, right? But what are you really going to do? So, isn't it, and this is kind of the hard part, right? Because it's the Elon Musk buying shares in Twitter problem just within different industries, right? So you have two political parties. Both political parties will agree that lobbying is wrong if the lobbying is against their particular policy or belief system, right? So a good example would be like Twitter censoring maybe, let's say, conservative points of view. And when the conservatives say, hey, this is wrong, the liberals will come out and say, well, no, it's a private company, therefore they can do whatever they want. But then as soon, or not, I guess not a private company, it's a company, so they can do whatever they want. Then, you know, Elon comes in, they buy 10%. And then all of a sudden the liberals are like, well, maybe we really need to look at this as, you know, it doesn't seem to be like a good idea. Now it's not right that we have these oligarchs that can just buy up something and then influence what people can say on the platform. So they both technically have the same argument. They only want to enforce it, though, if it applies to them. So yeah, it's kind of like playing the game, right? At the end of the day. Nonus Miner says, at Son of a Tech, I'm moving to an all-inclusive apartment, free electricity. Would you recommend to mine or go to ASIC? You mean to GPU mine or move to ASIC? ASICs are going to be really loud. It's up to you, though. And then most of the ASICs that are profitable are going to require a lot of power. So, you know, once you're past a certain point, and what is the panel at the apartment? What's your approvals going to be? Is there going to be a limit on the power? Read the lease. Make sure you understand, because in a lot of cases that might not be all that you think it may be, right? Tyhoon says, at Son of a Tech, I just do some calculating after the merge and the hash rate went up by 7 at Ergo and Flux. But if people price times 3 or 4, we are still getting huge profits. The question is, will it pump or dump? I mean, like the whole entire industry is going to go through this, right? So I don't think that it's completely just dependent on these coins, because what it's really dependent on when we're talking about altcoins is ultimately, as long as they're not doing anything crazy, right? As long as they're not doing something that revolutionizes something in crypto, or they rug pull everyone and it completely dumps, as long as whatever project that is, and it's an altcoin, is still proof of work mineable, all you really still have to worry about is the price of Bitcoin, because all those altcoins will follow up with it. It's just the way it is right now. I want to say thanks to Hawk Mining Crypto for the $19.99 super chat. You rock, my man. I believe we had a super chat earlier from Infamous Goblin Loser. Thanks for the $3 on another account there. All right. Ethan says, ask Tech most recommended hardware wallet and why. So I'm really old school and I'm still using my Trezors. I have more to test. So I only recommend a Trezor because it was better than the Ledger, but also I'm an old head on the tech and I need to revamp and look at some of these stones and stuff like that. But I'm a little bit behind. I think there's some other channels out there that do have more reviews, and I have to kind of dig into this whole problem as well once again and figure it out and make a video for you guys. Vinicius says, ask Tech, did you test out effects of full light hash rate unlock on Ergo? Didn't know it would affect it, but I saw a couple of Reddit posts saying otherwise. No, I have not. Also, I'm not sure we don't have full light hash rate unlocks. I know the L miner was higher up now, but not full. Retro Mike says, ask Tech, iPollo also has info on their ETH and ETC ASICs. ETH mini at 300 mega hash a second at 190 watts, and full size is a 5.4 gigahash at 3,450 watts. That sounds scammy. For some reason, I don't believe that. Impala says, at Son of a Tech, hope Illinois passes that incentive. Should I buy 1660 supers as I get the funds or save until the end of the month and make a buy decision? That's going to be up to you, my man. I really can't tell you. It depends on where you're at. Justin says, at Son of a Tech, do you think now is a good time to purchase a KD Box Pro miner for $6K? No. But not financial advice. We just talked about ASIC mining profitability. Doesn't look good. Mining My Way says, at Son of a Tech, some people mine yield instead of the US dollar, speculating on future appreciation in value of the coin. Yeah, but you can do the same if you mine whatever's most profitable and then buy that coin, right? There's no real big difference there. Also, if you're doing that, you also still need to take into account your cost. So you should be doing both. Pay Me in Crypto says, ask Son of a Tech, have you seen Fire Festival documentary? Gave me some serious ETH proof of stake vibes, promising the world and delivering nothing. No, I don't even know what that is. LZ says, ask Son of a Tech, what is the state of Flux coin? It dipped under $1.50 right now. Everything's dipping because the whole market's dipping. Once again, we just go back to earlier because everybody wants to try to predict these altcoins going up 3 to 4 times post proof of work. But in reality, it's all just going to be dependent in most cases, unless something weird happens, right? It's always still just like going to follow the dad. Bitcoin's the dad. That's what all the altcoins are going to follow. So it's not surprising that if Bitcoin's going down, that Flux is going down. And what happened, the high of the Bitcoin Miami conference has ended. That's what has happened at this time. C-Script says, at Son of a Tech, I currently have around 9 of my older computers mining Monero because my electricity is cheap. Have you made a tutorial on mining other CPU coins like Vertex? Not Vertex. Varus coin I've done. And then we've done Raptorium, we've done Monero, of course. I'm trying to think. There's a few other CPU mineable coins that we've done, but not Vertex. Didn't know about that one. Infamous Goblin Loser, what's up, man? Says, at Son of a Tech, same account, you changed your name for many reasons. One of which is to make it easier on everyone to tag you instead of me. Aha. Okay. Thanks. Joel says, at Son of a Tech, also, this might be a dumb question, but once ETH goes proof of stake, will all ETH miners flood to Bitcoin and other markets, lowering profit per miner? First of all, Bitcoin is an ASIC mineable coin, So no, the people mining and specifically the algorithm is SHA-256. So if you have two ASICs, you have an Ethereum ASIC, you have a Bitcoin ASIC. The Ethereum ASIC would be ET hash. The Bitcoin ASIC would be SHA-256. You can't take an ETH ASIC and put it onto the Bitcoin network. So Bitcoin's out of the question. Now, a lot of GPU miners are mining Ethereum. So once Ethereum moves to proof of stake, those GPU miners will move to another GPU mineable coin. You can see what these are on a website called What to Mine. We cover it every day. So it will potentially lower the profit. Well, profits are going to go down from that no matter what. By how much is going to be determined by the success of each individual project and factors that we really can't predict. I mean, that's really, at the end of the day, there's too many factors there for us to predict. We're going to have to see what happens. Emmanuel says, ask Ravencoin, I have a 1660 Super. What should I overclock to? Any recommendations on how to grow my first rig from 1 GPU to 6? It's a slow process. You know, if you want to do it a little faster, you can take some money from your day job. That's what I did. You can go sell things. I did that too. But in general, right, the process is plug that one card in, save up all that revenue, buy another card, put that in the rig. Now you're mining with 2 instead of 1. You just exponentially, increased your profitability there. You doubled your profit or your revenue, right? Then you take the revenue from those 2, save it up, you buy another, and that's the way it works. It's not really any different than a general asset class kind of purchase. Like, this is what really rich people do, just with much larger assets that generate revenue, right? With like property, etc. It's not really any different. Once you start to learn that process, the great thing about GPU mining is you can get into something similar to that and start understanding and learning that process at a much lower price barrier. And that's why I've always liked GPU mining, because it teaches you that. Jorge says, ask Ravencoin, any comment on the Axios Infinity hack? No, I don't know exactly what's going on with that. I'll have to add that to my list of things to read up on today. Ethan says, ask Ravencoin, opinions on CPU and GPU mining on the same rig. Not really too big of an issue. You will get load average like warnings on your Hive OS, for example. And then it can kind of sometimes slow some things down depending on the algorithm. Like if you're doing Ethereum, not as big of a deal. If the CPU is a little weaker, like let's say like a Celeron G3450 or whatever, I wouldn't do that because those usually will crash. So if you are going to do CPU and GPU mining on the same rig, just go out and purchase a Ryzen CPU that can handle all of that, because it's going to have to still handle some communications with the GPUs. Mining My Way says, ask Ravencoin if you like paying trading fees and taxes. That's on you. Some people are just stuck on Ethereum. Well, if you are talking about that, then I think what you're trying to say is for like the trading for what you want to buy. In practice, what that actually turns into is you filing capital gains loss if you're doing it properly. But that's where miners get a cut. LZ says, and you would still have to do that. If you're mining directly and waiting for that coin to go up, you're going to pay more capital gains. We could sit down and talk about it if you want. I'm not a CPA. I'm not a tax advisor. I'm just saying you're misunderstanding how to look at it. LZ says, that's Matic. Thanks for your always staying real and authentic. I try. I'm wrong a lot, though. Number one news source, greetings from Switzerland, where electricity cost is killing my joy of mining. Yeah, that's a bad one. Seb Chaps sends over the $2.79 Canadian super chat. Thank you. C-Script says, Asamatech, it's hard to save all your earnings, though. It is hard. One of the things like I've been personally working on is practicing stoicism, right? And like literally sitting down there and like at this point now I'm just like reading all the quotes and reminding myself every day of all that stuff, right? Try to wake up every day and not think about the things you want, but think about the things you have and what you can do with what you have, right? And that's helping me out a lot. So maybe get into some stoics, some philosophy. Try to reprogram yourself outside of materialism to find some joy, the joy that you already have access to without the need for material things. Obviously, I have a problem with material things, but it can help. Ethan says, Asamatech, I want to hodl all the Bitcoin I get. ETH turned into Bitcoin from 2 miners, but also want to grow out my farm by selling. Ideas. You can only pick one. So either you're going to invest in hardware or you're just going to keep mining and hodling. On this channel, not financial advice, but what I do, always would rather reinvest into hardware than to just hold a coin. And that, my friends, goes against what everybody will tell you within the cryptocurrency YouTube space for the most part. But I would always rather have a physical piece of equipment than holding on to the cryptocurrency. Raymond says, Asamatech, any news on the merge? We already talked about it yesterday. We literally just talked about it. Full update on the channel. I'll link it to you guys. Give me a second. When does Ethereum mining end? We just did that right there. Simon says, at Son of a Tech, would you ever go on NiceHash for income? Not necessarily, because I think that it's also not good for the networks. It definitely doesn't seem to be good for the Flux network, in my humble opinion. Whatever's going on there doesn't seem to be good. Joel says, at Son of a Tech, is it better to buy multiple GPUs or one ASIC? Budget is around 5K USD, just looking to get into mining. So, I mean, obviously, there's going to be pros and cons to each one. In the past, right, if you were talking about ASICs, you would say, essentially, you have a higher price to entry. They're going to be louder. In a lot of cases these days, it's also going to require 220. Which is going to require you to plug into a dryer vent or your stove or something along those lines if you're mining out of the house. There's a lot of things going on there, as opposed to if you're just going to be doing a GPU mineable one, you can slowly scale up one by one, start getting used to the process. It's up to you at the end of the day. The other thing that you can do is, if your kids want a gaming rig, there's ways to build them a PC and then still mine on it. There's a lot of different options. Basically, what I would say is you have a lot more flexibility at the end of the day, more algorithms available as well. But just let's put it this way. You have a lot more flexibility at the end of the day with the GPU than you do with an ASIC. LZ, thanks for the $2. Says better being wrong sometimes than selling out. There you go. Metal Miner says, Asamatech, keep up the positive mental attitude. You got to. Stick Shark says, Asamatech, the material things I want are GPUs. Right, but even then, so, I mean, that's kind of the whole thing, though, is yeah. you're fine. You don't need more GPUs. You can't get any more today. Do what you can with what you have. Now, if you wake up tomorrow and you got $400 extra and you need to do with what you have, do what you can with what you have on that day, right? You're trying to do the fullest everything you can, and you can go purchase a GPU with that $400, then that's what you can do that day. Boom, done. It's that simple. Like, all that is built into stoicism. Like, your idea, though, shouldn't ever be worrying about the future, right? Or concentrating on the past. It should be in the present. And that's the entire idea. And once you just understand to be grateful for the material things that you do have and to use those to their fullest potential, then all the other stuff kind of just falls into place in theory. But it doesn't mean that life doesn't get hard. It's just, it is what it is. That Simon Tech says, I have one rig with 7 cards on it. Do you think it's worth trying to get more with adapters or just buy a new motherboard? I would always buy more motherboards, because then, like, if you have that one point of failure, it's going to be a problem. Right? Brainy Beaver says, I built my son a banging gaming PC with bundled parts you got with GPUs. Nice. Losing with Larry says, ask Tech, do you share your ETH address so a person can point rigs for a day? Well, yeah, all my mining pool information is down below, so you guys can audit it and all that stuff. It's actually a Bitcoin address, so mine's set up through Bitcoin on 2 miners right now. But we also did a how-to video on that. So maybe if you want to learn how to do it and then use my address for the donation, I'd enjoy that. Also, you get to learn something. So there you go. And I believe that video is... I'll try to find that one for you guys as well. I got to get going. I feel like we have a ton of videos. We do. I guess that's what happens when you're posting over 100 videos a week. Or a month. Sorry, not a week. 100 videos a week would be absolutely insane. I'll have to find it later. It's all good. Mining says, that's Simon Tech, only worry about the future when you're running out of power. Well, what can I do today with the power that I got? And then I'll just call. The only thing I can do is call and ask for more power, right? I can make that call. We can move towards it. But to worry about that is unnecessary, right? Because if I keep calling and I keep worrying about more power, and that takes up my brain space for the entire day, then I won't accomplish the things that I need to accomplish today. Yeah, this shirt's really interesting. It gets a lot of comments. It's the Gamer Sup shirt. Trading nickels. But I'm going to head out. I'm going to head to the jiu-jitsu. Thanks everybody for hanging out today. Oh, keep calm, mine on. Hit the like, hit the comment, hit the sub. Thanks for all the support on the channel. I'll see you guys next Tuesday.